Thank you, Debashish, for the introduction. And let me begin by thanking Arnob and Pinaki for having me here. And this is my first visit to IMSC. I've been several times to IIT Chennai, but not here. So today I'll be discussing about some work that we are doing in our research group. So this is something which is, we are interested in looking into the phenomena called transition path dynamics, and we are looking into how it behaves in a rough potential barrier. And transition path tiles, I'll come to it, and I was introduced to this area long time ago during my postdoc time with Dima Makarov at UT Austin, and though I did not follow it up later, but we got interested into this again. So, in the context of barrier crossing rates or reaction rates, one of the most remarkable theory is the transition state theory, which is, all of you know, is based on the equilibrium formulation of chemical rates, where the reactions are known to proceed through a high energy intermediate called the transition state, which is assumed to be in equilibrium with the reactants. Then came the seminal work by Kramers, which kind of combines the rate theory with the theory of Brownian diffusion, where the dynamics of the molecule of interest is considered to be following Brownian motion, and the interaction of this molecule with the solvent give rise to a friction as well as to a random noise produced by the thermal motion. Now, when I talk about biomolecular rearrangements such as the protein folding phenomena between the folded and the unfolded states, they can be described by a two-state transition in a free energy landscape, where the two deep wells representing the folded and the unfolded conformer are separated by a high energy barrier. Now, in this barrier crossing phenomena, if we consider the reactant and the product states, then considering that the barrier height is much higher than the thermal energy, the particle will tend to spend most of its time in these local states, and then the quantity of interest is the first passage time, which is the time spent by the particle in one free energy minima before it makes a transition into another. So basically this barrier crossing event is essentially a rare event, as we can say, and the Kramers escape rate is obtained from the mean first passage time formalism. So in this whole thing, the time that is spent actually to cross the barrier is very small, and this is what we refer to the transition path time. There's a time taken to overcome the barrier region without recrossing the initial boundary. Now, these transit times are considered to be much smaller magnitudes than the first passage time. Now, one can actually look into this transit path times from simulations, but naive simulation techniques will actually not give us proper statistics because they are rare events, and one also needs to take care of the computational cost. So, quite some time ago, there were different single molecular experimental techniques that came into picture, which could give very good time resolution. And in this context, single molecule force spectroscopy measurements and single molecular FRET measurements were important, where in this kind of experiment, a DNA hairpin was attached to two beads that are attached to optical traps under tension, and the displacement of the beads helps us to monitor the state of the molecule. As the unfolded form is considered to be in a more extended form than the folded one, by measuring the extension profiles, one can actually kind of find out what is the state of the molecule under interest. Similarly, there were single molecular FRET measurements where a biomolecule is attached to a donor-acceptor pair, and depending upon the interfluorophore distance, the donor fluorophore will transmit energy to the acceptor fluorophore and light will be emitted. So from the single molecular FRET measurements, one can calculate the FRET efficiency, which will describe the transition path from unfolded to folded states. So these different studies have actually pushed temporal resolution to the microsecond time scale and have permitted the observation of transition paths. In this context, based on all of these single molecular measurements and also looking into different advanced simulation techniques, for example, transition path sampling methods, and also another method that was used known as milestoning, which was introduced by Ron Elber and co-workers. These kind of inspired many theoretical work, and these, when we are talking about biomolecular folding in multidimensional landscapes, if one needs to look into the dynamics of the system, to make life simple, one approximates that the reaction is a 1D barrier crossing problem and approximates that the top of barrier is a parabolic potential. And this barrier is symmetrically placed between minus x0 and plus x0. And since we are talking about transit paths where recrossing is forbidden, if one needs to implement absorbing boundaries. Now, this is a basic idea of modeling where we consider that the particle, the trajectory starts very close to the left boundary called as a minus x0 plus epsilon, and they are terminated when they reach x0, and ideally one has to put absorbing boundaries out here. And the easiest way or the most convenient way to start with is to use a overlap Langevin equation with a white noise and write down the corresponding Fokker-Planck equation. Now the flux at the right boundary will essentially give us the trajectories that contribute to this distribution, and from the flux calculation one can calculate the transit path distribution. This is the basic idea, but this flux calculation requires us to get a solution of the Fokker-Planck equation, which is somehow not a very easy thing to do with absorbing boundaries in picture. One can do it for a linear or a free boundaries, free diffusion, but even for a inverted parabola, it is getting a solution with absorbing boundaries is not simple. So what was done was open boundary conditions were used, and the analytical expressions for the transit path time was obtained. Well, here equation 49 refers to that expression, and what was found is that the agreements between the simulation and the theory became better for higher barrier heights, because analytically these results converged to absorbing boundary results in the high barrier limit where recrossing is extremely rare. Now these theoretical results were used to fit the experimental data, and what was found is that the barrier height that one obtains by fitting the experimental data to the theoretical expression was an order of magnitude lower than free energy calculations from landscape measurements. And also these transition paths were only derived at the limit of diffusive dynamics where friction is large and one needs to consider only the Smolnikowski limit of the dynamics. Now, based on all of these studies, there were certain open questions like what are the effects of memory on the transition path distribution, transition time distribution? What is the transition path distribution when the friction is moderate or weak, that is not considering the overdamped dynamics? Whether considering a parabolic barrier is too simple a picture, and also what is the role of added dimensions in all of these cases. So first and foremost, let me talk about the role of memory. Well, mapping a high dimensional system into an effective one-dimensional model essentially introduces memory effects leading to non-Markovian dynamics. So in this case, due to the insufficient time scale separations due to solvent reorganization, the standard Markovian assumption kind of approximation fails down, and in that context one can actually do a non-Markovian generalization of the Kramers model by using a generalized Langevin equation. Now, Heinz and co-workers have used this by where the frequency dependent memory friction coefficient had the memory effects, and their results were validated by Hangi and co-workers using the flux over population method, and later many simulation studies were done. So there has been different other ways of treating memory in these kind of measurements of transit path distributions. For example, Pollock and co-workers have used a normal mode analysis where the particle is considered to be bilinearly coupled to a bath of harmonic oscillators. Makarov and co-workers have used a fractional Brownian motion model with an exponential memory kernel. Carlin and co-workers have used a generalized Langevin equation with a power law memory kernel. Well, power law memory kernel has been found to be very effective in describing dynamics of polymers and other systems with long relaxation time, and this study was done in the overdamped dynamics. Now, what was observed is that the inclusion of memory kind of broadens the distribution when the motion is subdiffusive, that is alpha is less than 1, and gives to a long tail distribution. And due to the strong correlation between the random forces of the thermal bath, the memory accelerates the transition path time. Though most of these studies till now have involved overlap dynamics, one thing that is important is that since transition time scales are referred to shorter time scales, we would kind of wanted to see is get an idea of the full distribution. That means what is the role of inertia, and that is what we did, where we included both memory and inertia in the picture. And what we found is that the frictional force kind of facilitates the particle to move forward in the same direction due to the finite relaxation time. So mean transit time with inertia was found to be shorter than that for overdamped systems. So most of these theoretical studies that I have kind of referred to till now are studies where open boundary conditions have been used to get the transit path distributions. And but as I said earlier, that for low barriers one would observe a difference between the transit path distribution obtained between absorbing boundaries and free boundaries, because recrossings can take place, and that is not what the transit path time is. And also, if one uses the distribution based on absorbing boundaries and fits experimental data, one will find that the transit path time will be larger than the values that are based on theories with free boundary conditions. So what next is that we looked into studies where one can actually look into some absorbing boundaries, and they can actually prevent recrossing of the trajectories, and one can do it by using an eigenfunction expansion method, where the Fokker-Planck equation, the distribution is written in the form of eigenfunctions and eigenvalues, where the separation of variables allow us to write a time dependent part and a position dependent part, and the exact expression of the transit path time was obtained using these eigenfunctions and eigenvalues of the associated Fokker-Planck equation. This study was done both for a memoryless case and for the other case where power law memory kernel was used. And here the solid lines are fit to the are compared with the dashed lines which refer to the open and absorbing boundaries, where you see that at low barrier height there are discrepancies, there is overestimation for open boundaries, but at large barrier heights the free boundary results as expected will converge to the absorbing boundaries. Well, in this case the expression that was obtained by using this eigenfunction technique was also compared with the numerical integration of the Langevin equation, and the results were in excellent agreement. So basically with this one gets an idea of how to bring into absorbing boundaries in reality to treat transient path dynamics. But even though what was found is that the long tail, time tail of the experimentally calculated transit path distribution was essentially much longer than one would predict by a parabolic barrier diffusion model, even by using absorbing boundaries or by bringing into memory into picture and all of these things. So the question was that, is a parabolic barrier a good approximation? And what is the role of anharmonicity or so? So there has been a few studies where, for example, by this Carragher group, where they have used a symmetric potential essentially, which is a combination of a harmonic and a linear part. And though they found that the distributions can get broader or narrower depending upon the choice of these potentials, they are kind of indistinguishable from those obtained from parabolic potential. Again, some studies by Polak and Datta was done where they used different forms of potential, which kind of makes the barrier broader and broader, but still they found that their results, these were simulation studies, they could not explain their experimentally obtained long time distributions. So basically asymmetry was something which was not sufficient to account for the experimentally measured long tail. So since we are talking about transition path where, in principle, one can think about many microstates, the assumption of a free energy surface as a single barrier separating the folded and the unfolded states may not actually work, and experimentally measured long time tails suggests the existence of trap in the transition region which can prevent rapid recrossing. This was kind of tested by using two types of potentials which were acting as traps on the barrier, like the Cubs barrier well and the piecewise quadratic potential. And through these simulations, by using these potential, simulation studies were done and they were good fits were obtained with the experimental results. Now this fit yielded a transition path barrier height which was around 3 kBT, which was much larger than what was earlier obtained. So basically the use of these kind of trapped potential, though they were not giving very good fit with the barrier height, with the experimental measured barrier height, but they were better in the sense that the degrees in the order, difference in the order of magnitude kind of became better. Now when we talk about rough potentials, we can think about many systems where rough potentials are important. For example, transition in transmembrane helices, glass transitions, energy landscapes of proteins and other nucleic acids, where rough potentials essentially come into picture, where interactions between solvent and the salt have led to transient interactions during folding and unfolding, and these interactions, overcoming these interactions may lead to energy landscape roughness. Single molecular experiment on ROS protein have identified several on-pathway intermediate states. DNA hairpin studies have also observed transition paths, brief pauses in the transition path because of the capture of the molecule in small kinetic traps in the barrier region. So all of these studies kind of indirectly indicate that though choice of a smooth potential, is an obvious choice in most of the studies, roughness needs to be considered for transition path analysis. And that is what we are kind of looking into. So this is a potential that we use to include roughness, which is essentially an inverted parabola superimposed with an oscillatory cosine function. So this kind of potential is something which is not very new or the first time that we have used it. Here this kind of potential have been used by Mesler and co-workers to study the memoryless dynamics under open boundary conditions. Here epsilon refers to the amplitude of the roughness and omega is the barrier frequency. But since we are talking about rough potential, recrossings are significant and free boundary conditions may not hold well. So what our idea was is to write down the Fokker-Planck equation by solution of the Fokker-Planck equation by implementing absorbing boundaries. So basically the idea was to consider how to kind of treat diffusion in a rough potential into a effective diffusion in a smooth potential. So for that we used a kind of separation of length scale separation technique, and which actually allowed us to write the potential in the form of effective potential and the diffusion coefficient in the term of a effective diffusion coefficient, which led to the smoothing of the rough potential. And with this picture we then implemented the eigenfunction technique that I discussed a few slides ago, and we calculated the transit path time distribution. These are results using absorbing boundaries, and as we predicted, as we already discussed, that for a higher barrier heights we will get very good fits between the open and the absorbing boundaries, but the open boundary can kind of overestimates the results for lower barrier heights. Now we wanted to see how this transition path time depends upon epsilon and omega. So we actually found that with increase in the amplitude of the roughness, the particle is kind of more stuck in the microstates along the transition path, that makes the distribution broader and shifts towards longer times. This is exactly what we see when we go on increasing epsilon. Also, one important thing in our model is that the value of the barrier frequency. So this model kind of works for high values of omega. For low values of omega, the length scales are very large for the rough potential, as a result of which it will be not possible to separate, to approximate the total potential as only the parabolic potential. So this is also something that we found, that when omega is small, the fits are not so good. We also looked into another thing, that what is the effect of the barrier height. Well, when we think about a high barrier height, the parabolic inverted parabolic potential changes much faster than the rough part, as a result of which here also the superimposition of the two potentials may not work well, and the separation of length scale technique does not work both well. We see that when we do a comparison between the k equal to 1 and k equal to 10, we see that the solid lines, okay, that I should mention that the circles are actually the results that we obtain from simulations. We do not get good agreement between the two. So what we can say, that there are disagreements between the simulation and the theory at large barrier heights and for low roughness frequency. The separation of length scale, which is very important for this theory to work, separation between the roughness and the parabolic barrier, is difficult to attain, and in these two cases making spatial averaging less effective. So this is a result that I discussed for the memory race case, where we have used closed absorbing boundary conditions and found out the transition path distribution. These are exact results in the sense that by using a spatial averaging averaging technique. Now we wanted to see what happens when memory comes into picture. Say here the Fokker-Planck equation for a rough barrier, it is difficult to obtain the time dependent diffusion coefficient. So what we do is that we use a steady state flux analysis and we obtain a scaled time dependent diffusion coefficient. So this is how the scale time dependent coefficient looks like. And so basically the problem of diffusion over a rough potential is kind of reduced to a diffusion over a smooth barrier with this modified diffusion coefficient. As before, I said that the scaling works better for lower values of epsilon and for lower barrier height. But what we see is that in the presence of memory, the random forces generated by the thermal bath are strongly correlated and facilitates barrier crossing. So this study, this particular exercise helps us to calculate the transit path distribution for a rough potential using absorbing boundaries by using this scaled time dependent diffusion coefficient. So if I want to conclude this part is that what we find is that for Markovian case we find that an increment in the roughness amplitude shifts the transition path to a longer time and the distribution becomes broader. This kind of study also gives us a qualitative idea that in long tail experimental obtained distribution, the roughness may come in and play an important role. We have obtained the scaling relationship of the diffusion coefficient to incorporate the memory effect in the barrier crossing events, and the absorbing boundary conditions prevent the recrossing at the boundaries and helps our investigation. I'd like to mention that the scaling relationship that we found out is true when the length scale of roughness is very small compared to the length scale of the parabolic potential. So remember the evaluation of this time dependent diffusion coefficient, the scale time dependent diffusion coefficient requires one to use the steady state flux approach, and this has been numerically tested for washboard potentials or periodic potentials, essentially which tells us that the scaling kind of is better for low barrier height. So I would like to mention here that this is kind of a limitation, that the roughness here which has been addressed by scaling the diffusion coefficient is a method that is valid for a highly corrugated potential with a low roughness barrier height. Also, we have applied this method. This method has actually requires a prior knowledge of a time dependent diffusion coefficient, which is known in the case of parabola. But for any other complicated shapes, it is kind of the potential, it is difficult to have a knowledge of this time dependent diffusion coefficient. Nevertheless, what we can say is that the role of roughness, which has not been kind of included much in the theoretical study of transit path times, we have tried to kind of look into that and see whether we can have some qualitative idea about the longer tails that are obtained, tail distributions which are also obtained in experiments. Now, when I talk about roughness, as I said to you earlier, that they are important in structural glasses, in ion channels, in polymers and so on. So, what we wanted to look into, since we now had an idea of how to treat roughness, we are currently looking into a problem where we are exploring the role of roughness in the internal motions of protein, where the free energy landscapes of the protein are known to be rugged and complex, which kind of lead to a broad spectrum of internal motion that are taking place on multiple time scales. Now, protein surfaces are not static, but they are considered to be plastic boundaries where they interact with ligands that lead to internal motion. So, this global minima is essentially a convolution of many local minimas of different barrier height. Proteins are known to explore different conformational spaces on functional time scales. For example, like in enzymes, one can see that the catalytic rates can exhibit significant fluctuations over time. And these internal motions can last longer than the catalytic time scales in the order of microseconds. The question is, what are the possible reasons for this long relaxation time? Well, studies have kind of shown that the relaxation process and the reaction kinetics deviate from exponential behavior because of their large amount of conformational substates. Slow relaxation and long time correlation are observed in experiments and many different proteins indicating multiple subdiffusion. A study by Sanishi and co-workers have actually shown that these fluctuations follow there's a power law behavior. So one can think that the dynamics of the folded proteins as a fictitious particle executing anomalous diffusion on a rugged energy landscape possessing many wells of various depths. And there have been many models, to study, or many theories to look into this anomalous diffusion. For example, people have used the fractional Brownian dynamics approach, or they have used the fractional Fokker-Planck equation approach. So, with the idea of roughness that we have for now, what we wanted to look into a particle confined in a harmonic potential with several microstate tracks. And the idea is that for long time memory, the stochastic dynamics will be given by the fractional Fokker-Planck equation. So, I am not going to details where we go to the Fourier Laplace space, find out the solution, and from there we obtain the distribution and the moments of the distribution. These Fokker-Planck equations were essentially solved analytically under the assumption of small roughness value. Here A refers to the roughness parameter. And we wanted to go broader by looking not only restricted to this theory, but we wanted to do some simulation studies. And so what we used is the continuous time random walk model, where we can actually characterize the behavior of a high dimensional landscape, and it provides us with the flexibility to look into a wide range of temporal correlations in subdiffusive dynamics, where it considers a power law waiting time. So with these simulations, we actually calculated different statistical measures. For example, we looked into the mean square displacement, and these are the different roughness parameters where the solid lines are the theoretical graphs, and as I said earlier, they won't match for higher values of roughness because the theory is correct only for lower roughness parameters. We could essentially find out three characteristics time scales. One is that for small length scales, the particle follows free diffusion. For intermediate length scales and time scale, there is rough potential coming into, which kind of slows down the mean square displacement, and for larger length scales, a particle is kind of confined to a harmonic potential, which leads to a steady state. We actually also looked into what is the role of subdiffusive dynamics, and we compared at different values of alpha, and we see that in the presence of subdiffusive dynamics, the strongly correlated motion kind of allows the particle to quickly reach the roughness minima, and the particle being trapped in the microstates, the plateau region comes earlier. We also kind of, apart from the mean square displacement, which is something very routine measure of the stochasticity or characteristic function, we looked into another quantity, which is the time average mean square displacement, which is very important in the context of single particle tracking, where we can look into the trajectory of the single molecule particle evaluated in terms of TMSD. These are simulation studies using the continuum time random walk model. And what we found is that roughness kind of leads to the prolonged trapping of the particle in the microstates, and that's the reason it kind of decreases the time average mean square displacement. We are also looking into what is the role of subdiffusion out here, and what we find is that for smaller alpha, long waiting times of power law behavior is encountered, which leads to the lowering of the TMSD. So basically, we can see that roughness with subdiffusion dynamics can lead to highly sluggish motion, thereby increasing the relaxation time in the harmonic potential. These are the different kind of statistical studies that we are doing. This is work in progress. So I think I will end here. And before I end, let me thank one of my PhD students, Pankaj, who is currently working in this project. I'd like to thank IISER Pune, my SERB CRG and SERB Power grants for supporting me, and thank you all for your attention.
Questions? So, is there any general condition like the roughness or ruggedness of the potential under which one would expect the Mittag-Leffler function or the correlation function versus, say, exponential or something like that?
See, Mittag, there are different ways people have used, you taken care of this kind of relaxation behavior as in taking Mittag-Leffler function, because they have been used very commonly to fit to experimental results. People have also used stretched exponential functions. So, there are different kind of contradicting or agreeing groups which believe that how good a Mittag-Leffler function is, and they have been mostly used for power law distribution. So, in our studies, what we have done, we have used a Mittag-Leffler function and done it. But like I would not say that that's the only way to do it, since studies have been done by considering memory being more successful by using this power law distributions as the reason why we have also used the same thing. Yeah, it's a Mittag-Leffler. It's a Mittag-Leffler. It's a big form. It's a Mittag. No, it's the alpha value that we have used is 3/4.
3/4.
Yeah.
So in the Fokker-Planck equation with memory, you get an effective diffusion, time-dependent diffusion constant. So I just want to ask about the simulation. While you do the simulation, you run you do the normal Langevin dynamic simulation with time-dependent diffusion constant.
Yes. Yeah.
Not simulate the general.
The simulation is not with an effective. It's a regular. We had to consider a scale diffusion coefficient only for our analytical work. Okay.
You do the simulation with the GLE starting from GLE.
Yes. Yeah. And that is what we found, that you will who have done the analytical work using the scale diffusion, and the GLE for the simulations are with just solving the GLE. So there are certain cases which I said that this analytical picture which we talk about, this length scale separation technique, that works at certain conditions. That is why at certain places you see deviation between simulation and theory. Okay.
So for the transition time, you have to set this epsilon going to 0, right?
Yes.
How do you do it in a simulation? In the simulation, what is the value you put?
We did not need to do that in the simulations. We just solved the Langevin equation and got it. This was something that we did it in the analytical work.
But in the simulation, when you run the Langevin equation,
Epsilon tends to 0, right?
Yes.
So it's a very small value, right? It's just a small thing. You can do that. We can discuss on this. I can tell you. Yeah, how to do it.
So other questions? So I have a question. So you use this free boundary approximation. So what is that actually?
It assumes that it is just a solution of a Fokker-Planck equation, which does not consider that in the case of a
You require the absorbing boundaries on
it is not even for a inverted parabola, it is not it is not known, right? The actual form of the solution of the Fokker-Planck equation with
So this free boundary in both sides, or one side you have a absorbing boundary, the other side is free?
reflecting absorbing boundary kind
So
of.
one side it's reflecting, other side is
absorbing
absorbing,
boundary.
not free.
Yeah, but not both sides are not absorbing.
So one side is reflecting.
In transition, but in transition path, actual theory tells that it should be two-side absorbing boundaries, right? So that is where we have to look for the solution separately. Okay.